Before we dive in, take a second and close your eyes. Do you remember the sound of a big 1970s American engine turning over on a cool morning? That deep, confident vroom that shook the whole driveway? Back then, cars weren't just cars. They were part of the family. Your dad's pride, your mom's shopping companion, your road trip movie theater, your childhood playground in the back seat, and sometimes the only place you could sneak in a nap after. Little league practice. Today we're turning the ignition key on those memories. Time when cars were enormous, chrome was everywhere, and gas was cheap enough that no one cared if your car drank like a thirsty elephant. So buckle up. Not that anyone in 1974 actually buckled up, and let's remember why those giant American cars meant so much. Let's be honest, cars in the 1970s weren't just big, they were massive. They were the kind of cars you didn't drive, you commanded. When you sat behind the wheel, you felt like the captain of a land-bound cruise ship, gliding down the streets with chrome, shining brighter than your neighbors, freshly polished, lawn ornaments, parallel parking, forget it. Trying to squeeze one of these giants into a normal-sized parking spot felt like you were attempting to park an aircraft carrier between two bicycles, and making a U-turn? You needed a full weekend, a map, and possibly a blessing from the local church. But here's the thing. Americans didn't just tolerate these big cars, they loved them. There was a kind of pride in owning a car that took up the whole driveway. A big car made you feel important, confident, and oddly safe. Not necessarily because they were scientifically safer, but because when you sat inside one, surrounded by all that metal, you felt like nothing on the road could touch you. Back then, comfort mattered. Road trips weren't quick dashes to the next city. They were full family expeditions, kids lying across the back seat, siblings fighting over who got the window, a cooler filled with sandwiches sliding around on the floorboard, and mom shouting, "Don't make me come back there," even though she clearly couldn't. So why were the cars so big? Because life was big, dreams were big, the roads felt endless, and America loved the idea of stretching out, leaning back, and cruising across the country with nothing but open sky and a roaring V8 ahead. And let's not forget the styling. Those long hoods and wide fenders weren't just design choices. They were statements. A Cadillac DeVille or an Oldsmobile. 98 said something before you even turned the key. I have arrived, and I used half a refinery to get here. Highways were built wide, gas was cheap, and no one cared if your car got 8 miles per gallon. That wasn't a flaw, that was personality. And when the sun hit that chrome just right, and the engine gave that low, confident rumble, it didn't matter how big the car was, it felt like freedom itself. Now let's really sink into the stars of the 1970s. American streets, the cars themselves. The Chevrolet Impala, a true road king. Its long, sleek lines seemed to stretch forever, and the iconic rear-end shape made everyone slow down and admire it. Sitting behind that wheel, you didn't just drive. You ruled the neighborhood for a few blocks, commanding attention wherever you went. And the Ford LTD, what a car. Like that loyal, quiet friend who never lets you down. Always there for the family picnic, the Sunday drive, or when you had to pick up groceries in a hurry. The LTD wasn't flashy, but it had presence. It had character. Then came the Oldsmobile 98, pure elegance on wheels. Sitting inside felt like being in a mobile living room, complete with plush seats, wood paneling, and a dashboard that made you feel like the king of comfort. Not just a ride, an experience. Cadillac DeVille. Every inch screamed sophistication. Chrome that shined under the sun. Interior so luxurious, it could have been a hotel suite. Even the kids in the back couldn't ruin its aura of prestige. If it could talk, it would whisper, "I am luxury, and I own this street." And then the Pontiac Bonneville. Mischievous, fun, and a little rebellious. Its roar told everyone around, "I'm here for adventure, I live for the thrill, and I don't care what anyone else thinks." A car with personality. A car that invited smiles and laughter wherever it went. Each of these cars had its own character. The Impala would declare, "I'm the boss." The LTD would quietly assure, "I've got this." The DeVille lounged proudly, "I own this street." And the Bonneville giggled, eager for the next escapade. And we as kids didn't just see cars, We saw worlds, backseat forts, cousins laughing, road trip snacks flying around, playful arguments about who got the window, trying to sneak a soda without mom noticing, feeling the wind rushing through those big manual windows. Every drive was an adventure. Every street held possibilities. Every car held a memory. And let's not forget the little details that made them unforgettable. The smell of vinyl and leather, the metallic glint in the sun, the gentle bounce of suspension over uneven roads, the hum of the engine that was part lullaby, part thrill. It was not just transportation. It was magic in motion. Every car carried a story. Every car held 1,000 small moments. The first drive alone, picking up a date, sneaking away to the ice cream stand, celebrating a promotion or a birthday. Life in the 1970s wasn't just lived, it was experienced behind the wheel of something big, bold and unforgettable. And when you think back to those days, you realize why those cars weren't just machines. They were friends, playgrounds, stages and memories on 4 wheels. They reminded us that life was bigger, slower, more tangible, and infinitely more fun. In the 1970s, a car wasn't just a way to get from point A to point B. It was part of family life, woven into every memory. It was the backdrop for birthday trips, Sunday drives, grocery runs, and the occasional spontaneous adventure that nobody planned, but everyone loved. You'd pile into a Chevrolet Impala or a Cadillac DeVille. Cousins and siblings squeezed together in the back seat. Blankets, board games, and snack bags scattered everywhere. Your mom would remind everyone to behave, half seriously, half knowing full well that the chaos was part of the magic. Weekends were practically synonymous with road trips. Family station wagons or full-size sedans became chariots carrying you to lakes, mountains, beaches, anywhere within a day's drive. Kids would argue over the best window seat. The dog would happily stick its head out to catch the wind, and Dad would hum along to the radio, pretending not to notice Mom's playful rolling of her eyes. Every mile traveled created a memory. Every snack, every squabble, every song on the radio became part of the family story. Even the everyday errands became adventures. Going to the grocery store in a Ford LTD could turn into a multi-sensory experience. The smell of fresh bread mingled with the scent of vinyl seats. Kids argued over who got the front seat. The hum of the engine provided a steady soundtrack, and minor mishaps, like spilled soda, only added to the nostalgia. It was in these moments that children learned patience, the value of sharing, and the joy of little things in life. The car also became a stage. Inside that moving box of metal, kids played games, whispered secrets, sang along to the radio, practiced their first jokes, and sometimes even performed family talent shows. The car was both a classroom and a playground, a stage and a safe haven. And for teenagers, cars represented freedom. Getting that first driver's license meant the streets were suddenly yours. Driving to the drive-in, the diner, or just cruising around the neighborhood, life felt enormous. Every curve of the road offered a new adventure. Every trip promised possibilities. Those cars carried dreams, laughter, friendship, and sometimes mischief, all rolled into one metallic package. In the end, these cars weren't just vehicles. They were characters, companions and keepers of family memories. They reminded everyone that the 1970s weren't just about getting somewhere. They were about enjoying the journey, the company, and the little adventures that made everyday life feel extraordinary. In the 1970s, cars weren't just vehicles. They were statements, personalities on wheels, social currency, and symbols of identity. Every neighborhood had its stars. The shiny Chevrolet Impala that turned heads wherever it went. The dependable Ford LTD quietly carrying families on Sunday drives. The Cadillac DeVille radiating luxury. And the Pontiac Bonneville inviting thrill and mischief. Movies and television turned cars into icons. Drive-in theaters were central to American teenage life. Families, couples, and friends gathered around their vehicles. Engines humming, radios blasting the latest hits, kids running, parents sharing laughter. The car wasn't just a machine. It was a social hub, a place where the day's adventures began and memories were cemented. Magazines, posters, and TV commercials made every kid dream. Ads promised freedom, style, and power. Owning a car meant you were someone. Toy cars on shelves, posters on bedroom walls, comic books with daring rides. Cars influenced imagination and inspired fashion. The jackets you wore, your hairstyle, even your sunglasses often reflected the car you aspired to drive. Daily life revolved around cars. Teenagers raced to diners or drive-ins. Families took long Sunday drives to show off their newest wheels. Friends planned joyrides after school. Cars dictated social rhythm. There were stages for first dates, hangouts, whispered secrets, and laughter-filled competitions over music selection or who got the front seat. They were where confidence grew, personalities formed, and friendships deepened. Cars also inspired stories. Endless memories unfolded. First kisses in the Impala, daring detours in the Bonneville, quiet drives with grandparents in the LTD, family road trips in the DeVille. Every car had a narrative. Every street became a witness to adventures, giggles, arguments, and celebrations. They were present at birthdays, holiday trips, school events, and countless small milestones. They also represented freedom. Teenagers experienced independence for the first time. The ability to leave the driveway, explore town, cruise through the neighborhood, or drive to the local hangout. Each journey held the potential for discovery, laughter, and memories that would last decades. Life behind the wheel was a blend of exhilaration and comfort, a place where imagination, friendship, and family intersected. And perhaps the most magical part? Cars shaped culture. They were in music lyrics, in TV show storylines, in magazine covers. They dictated trends, sparked conversations, and created shared experiences. Families and teenagers alike measured life in miles. Engine hums, road trips, and radio hits. Cars didn't just carry people. They carried stories, dreams, and the very essence of 1970s Americana. Looking back, you realize that cars weren't just functional. They were companions, playgrounds, stages, and memory keepers. They reminded everyone that in the 1970s, life was bigger, louder, and infinitely more memorable. Looking back at the 1970s, the cars weren't just vehicles. They were cultural icons, storytellers, and living snapshots of an era. They defined streets, neighborhoods, and even personalities. Every model carried a story. The Chevrolet Impala, long and commanding, whispered of family pride and social status. The Ford LTD quietly grounded families in everyday adventures. The Cadillac DeVille radiated elegance, luxury, and aspiration. And the Pontiac Bonneville brought mischief, laughter, and the thrill of teenage rebellion. Cars were part of music, movies, and television. They appeared in films as symbols of freedom and style, in songs as metaphors for love, escape, and rebellion, and in TV shows as central elements in storytelling. Posters, magazine spreads, and commercials encouraged children to dream, to imagine themselves behind the wheel of something bold, beautiful, and unforgettable. Cars shaped fashion, influenced hairstyles, and even inspired personality traits. And the memories! They became a shared experience across generations. Grandparents told stories of their first rides. Parents recalled Sunday drives, and teenagers reminisced about drive-ins, beach trips, and joyrides. Cars carried birthdays, holidays, summer vacations, and first crushes. Every scratch, every dent, every shiny chrome detail held a memory, a story, a feeling. The sense of freedom cars provided is hard to overstate. Teenagers experienced independence, adults celebrated mobility, and families enjoyed the ability to explore the country with comfort and style. Long highways, small towns, and roadside diners were stages for life's moments. Cars weren't just practical. They were central to the human experience, holding laughter, adventure, and intimacy. Even today, the nostalgia for these cars is palpable. Classic car shows, vintage magazines, collector clubs, and social media communities celebrate these icons. Driving a restored 1970s vehicle brings back the smells, sounds, and feelings of another time. A reminder of family, fun, and the simple pleasures of life. In essence, these cars were more than machines. They were companions, storytellers, and keepers of memories. They remind us that the 1970s were an era of bold design, personal expression, and endless adventure. The legacy of these cars continues to shape culture, style, and imagination today. They are proof that something as simple as a car can carry generations of memories, joy and nostalgia. The 1970s in America were truly a golden era for cars. More than machines, they were symbols, storytellers and companions. Picture neighborhoods alive with the gleam of Chevrolet Impalas, their long hoods catching the sunlight, turning heads and signaling family pride and social status. The dependable Ford LTDs quietly carried groceries, kids, cousins and pets, sometimes even a bicycle or a picnic basket on the roof. Cadillac DeVille's radiated luxury and aspiration, while Pontiac Bonnevilles dared drivers to break rules, chase adventures and embrace the thrill of teenage rebellion. Cars were the center of social life. Family road trips stretched for hours. Kids bickering over window seats. Parents debating the perfect radio station. The family dog sticking its head out the open window. The scent of road trip snacks mixing with gasoline and summer air. Vacations were punctuated with roadside diners, maps sprawled across car hoods, and gas stations smelling of coffee, rubber, and possibility. These long drives became rituals, a rhythm of life, a symphony of engines, laughter, and classic rock hits that defined childhood memories. Drive-in theaters were more than entertainment. They were social stages. Teenagers experienced first dates, whispered secrets, and the excitement of independence. Families shared evenings under starlit skies. Kids sprawled across back seats or car hoods. Parents laughing and telling stories. Every car in that parking lot had personality. A narrative, the Impala, carried first kisses and awkward conversations. The DeVille echoed with sing-alongs and family banter. And the Bonneville sparked mischief, secret trips and unplanned adventures. Fashion, style and personality were inseparable from cars. Sleek lines, bright colors, and shiny chrome details inspired jackets, hairstyles, sunglasses, and even shoes. Children imagined themselves behind the wheel. Adults aspired to own the perfect model, and the spirit of the car shaped the spirit of the person. Cars were stages for self-expression, symbols of status, and vehicles for adventure. Even mundane errands became unforgettable events. Grocery runs turned into playful competitions for the best snacks. Parents taught patience, negotiation and responsibility from the back seat. Children learned storytelling, creativity, and the thrill of small adventures. Cars were simultaneously classrooms, playgrounds and stages. The freedom cars offered was transformative. Teenagers reveled in independence with their first license, exploring town, visiting diners, and cruising aimlessly, feeling as if the world belonged to them. Adults relished the ability to escape routine, packing the family into a station wagon or a minivan and driving to beaches, mountains or lakes. Every mile offered opportunity for discovery, laughter and bonding. Cars became central to popular culture. Films, TV shows, songs, magazines, and commercials celebrated them as symbols of identity, freedom, and style. Streets filled with shiny Impalas or Bonnevilles became scenes for storytelling, imagination, and nostalgia. Families discussed their favorite cars, kids played with replicas, and collectors continued to preserve and admire these vehicles. Even decades later, the nostalgia is palpable. Classic car shows, vintage magazines, restored vehicles, and online communities celebrate the spirit of the 1970s driving. A restored car today brings back vinyl seat sounds, engine oil and gasoline scents, tires humming on asphalt, and the endless possibilities of a summer day. These cars carry history, joy, imagination, and memories. Proof that the 1970s were bigger, brighter, and unforgettable. Cars were also intimate witnesses to life's milestones. First crushes, prom nights, graduations, birthdays, holiday trips. Cars carried the soundtrack of life. Laughter, music, conversation, and the occasional argument. They shaped families, friendships, romances, and adventures, teaching lessons about patience, trust, and the joy of simple pleasures. Ultimately, the cars of the 1970s were not just vehicles. They were companions, storytellers, stages, and memory keepers. They defined childhoods, framed adolescence, and anchored family adventures. They embodied freedom, mischief, joy, nostalgia, and celebration. Remembering these cars is remembering an era, a time when life moved a little slower, laughter was louder, adventures were endless, and every journey promised discovery and delight. As we come to the end of our journey through the streets, drive-ins and highways of 1970s America, it's clear that these cars were more than just metal and engines. They were memories in motion, capsules of laughter, family stories, teenage adventures, and the soundtrack of an era. From the long, graceful Chevrolet Impalas to the daring Pontiac Bonnevilles, each vehicle carried its own personality, its own history, and its own magic. These cars remind us of simpler times, Sunday drives, road trips with friends, summer nights at the drive-in, and the feeling that life was a little bigger, brighter, and more fun. They carried not just people, but dreams, hopes, and the pure joy of moving through life with freedom and style.